In India, emotional intelligence isn't a soft skill, it is an ethical legacy. What comes to your mind when you hear the term emotional intelligence? For most of us, it's about self-awareness, emotional control, empathy, or maybe it reminds you of those best-selling books by Daniel Goleman or those workplace training programs on leadership and communication. Emotional intelligence, or EI as popularly called, has become a global idea. It's been used to train CEOs, evaluate students, guide hiring decisions, and even shape public policy. But here's a question we rarely ask. Is emotional intelligence truly universal? Or does its meaning change depending on where we are and who we are? The most widely used models of emotional intelligence, like the one of Mayer-Salovey or Goleman's framework, are grounded in Western psychology. They assume that emotions should be expressed clearly, that effective people assert their needs, that emotional intelligence means speaking up, not holding back. But what happens when we bring these models into India? Do they still fit? In many Indian workplaces, for instance, emotional restraint is considered a virtue. Deference to authority, respect for hierarchy, and knowing when not to speak are often signs of maturity, not weakness. As Indian researchers observe, the idea that emotions should be openly expressed doesn't always align with the social fabric of Indian institutions, whether in classrooms, families, or bureaucracies. This doesn't mean that India lacks emotional intelligence. It means we need to look at it differently. And today's session, we are not rejecting Western models. They have contributed immensely to understanding of emotions. But what we are trying to do today is, we are inviting you to expand the frame, to explore emotional intelligence through an Indian lens, where emotion is not just an individual experience, but a relational, ethical, and a spiritual one, where how we feel is shaped by our duties, our roles, and a collective sense of belonging. We will look at how Indian culture shapes emotional life, what our traditions, right from Bhagavad Gita to Indian psychology, can teach us about emotional self-mastery, and why a culturally rooted model of EI matters for education, governance, and leadership in India. Emotions are often described as universal. We all smile when we are happy. We frown when we are angry. And yes, some expressions do seem to transcend language and geography. But here's the question. Are emotions themselves universal? Or is it the way we interpret, express, and regulate them that changes with culture? Psychologists like Paul Ekman have shown that certain facial expressions are biologically hardwired. Joy, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, disgust. These are found in every culture. But as Indian researchers argue, what we do with these emotions is deeply cultural. In Western cultures, emotional intelligence is often about expressing emotions, naming them, owning them, speaking them aloud. Assertiveness, openness, and self-advocacy are seen as signs of maturity. But in Indian culture, emotions often live in quieter places, in our roles as sons, daughters, teachers, or officers, in how we balance what we feel with what is expected of us. Here, emotional intelligence might mean not speaking, because silence can signal respect, or holding back anger, not out of fear, but out of dignity. Psychologists call these display rules the unspoken social codes that tell us when to speak, when to listen, when to walk away. In India, we are often taught to manage emotions in ways that maintain social harmony. The question isn't always, how do I feel? It's often, what's the right thing to do in this situation? This idea that emotion is linked with ethical action runs deep in our traditions. We'll explore that in the next section. But for now, let's pause to reflect. Emotional intelligence doesn't float in a vacuum. It grows in soil, the soil of culture, values, and lived experience. And in India, that soil teaches us that wisdom isn't just about feeling more, it's about feeling wisely. To understand emotional intelligence, we must first understand what our culture teaches us to feel. What if emotional intelligence isn't a modern psychological discovery, but something our traditions have been exploring for centuries? In Indian philosophy, emotions aren't seen as distractions to be suppressed. They are forces to be understood, refined, and aligned with one's ethical path. Take the Bhagavad Gita. At its heart, it's not just a dialogue about war and duty. It's a moment of emotional crisis. Arjuna is overwhelmed by sorrow, fear, and moral confusion. He's not thinking clearly. He's paralyzed by feeling. And Krishna doesn't dismiss the emotions. He listens, he reframes, he guides. He teaches Arjuna to act not out of attachment or aversion, but with equanimity, with clarity, with discernment. This is samatva, balance in joy and sorrow, and nishkam karma, action without craving for reward. In Bhagavad Gita, it's written, "He who is not disturbed by happiness and distress is fit for liberation." This is emotional intelligence, not as a tool for success, but as a path for wisdom. We find similar wisdom in Buddhist thought. Emotions like anger and desire are not enemies. They are clouds passing through the mind. Mindfulness, compassion, non-attachment are seen as ways to purify one's emotional life. Similarly, the Yoga Sutras offer a concise formula: Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the stilling of mind's fluctuations. It's a discipline of awareness, of inner quiet, of mastering the emotional waves without drowning in them. Across these traditions, emotional maturity isn't about venting or indulging. It's about recognizing emotions, regulating them with awareness, and responding in ways that uphold dharma, while small responsibility. In this worldview, emotional intelligence isn't measured by how much we express, but how deeply we understand, how ethically we act, and how steadily we remain centered in the face of life's storms. So how do we bring these insights into modern framework? Can we build a model of emotional intelligence that reflects India's cultural and ethical roots, yet still speaks to the world of psychology, leadership, and education? That's what we turn to in the next section. So far, we have seen that Indian culture doesn't just shape how we express emotion. It shapes how we understand it, regulate it, live with it. But can emotional intelligence be studied in a way that truly reflects these values? Most of the popular AI models we use in India were developed elsewhere, in cultures that prize individualism, assertiveness, and self-promotion. These tools have value, but when we apply them here uncritically, they sometimes miss the mark. In Indian settings, emotional silence may be a sign of self-restraint. Deference may reflect not fear but respect. And emotional intelligence may be more about discretion than display. Recognizing this, Indian psychologists have proposed a culturally grounded framework for emotional intelligence. It includes 4 interconnected components. First component is social sensitivity. This means awareness of others' feelings, social roles, and relational expectations. It's not just empathy, it's samajik maryada, knowing what is appropriate when and for whom. Second one is pro-social values. This includes compassion, cooperation, and harmony. It reflects values like seva, karuna, and the moral commitment to others' well-being. The third component is called action tendencies. Emotionally intelligent behavior isn't just about knowing, it's about doing. In the Indian context, this means patience, ethical discretion, and moral courage to act rightly even under pressure. And lastly, it's emotional self-regulation, the ability to maintain calm, balance, and tolerance in challenging situations. This is cultivated through self-reflection, detachment, and an ethic of restraint, not suppression. Now let's compare this with Goleman's model of self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills. The difference: Western frameworks are inward and performance-driven, while the Indian model is relational, ethical, and socially embedded. Thereby, emotional intelligence is not just a toolkit for success, it's a compass for right living. And it's more relevant than ever, especially in how we lead, educate, and serve. So how do we apply this? What would it mean to teach emotional intelligence in Indian schools? Train it in governance or build into public service? Let's explore that. This isn't just about theory. Emotional intelligence matters deeply, not only in boardrooms or therapy sessions, but in classrooms, offices, panchayats, and parliaments also. Because when we import emotional intelligence models that don't reflect our social fabric, we risk misreading our own people. We mistake humility for weakness, silence for apathy, deference for incompetence, and we miss the opportunity to build something truly Indian, emotionally wise, ethically anchored, and socially attuned. Let's start with education. As scholars point out, we need emotional education that speaks in a child's own language, cultural language that is. Indian classrooms are full of emotional tension, competition, comparison, family pressure. A culturally rooted emotional curriculum can help children name and manage their feelings, develop empathy and moral imagination. They can learn all these through stories, not just skills. Imagine teaching compassion not through a worksheet but through story of Krishna and Sudama. This is emotional intelligence the Indian way. Now let's consider governance. Public servants deal with emotions daily: anger, fear, grief, hope. But administrative training rarely teaches them how to meet these feelings with sensitivity and integrity. The Indian model of EI, rooted in Dharma, Seva, and Restraint, offers tools that go beyond rules. It allows for listening deeply, acting justly, and holding space without losing self. This isn't soft power, it's ethical power. Because ultimately, emotional intelligence is not just a personal skill, it's a civic virtue. In a country as emotionally layered as India, culturally attuned EI can first strengthen trust between citizens and the state, improve institutional integrity, help build a more cohesive society. Emotional intelligence seen this way is not about controlling others, it's about mastering the self and leading with balance, care, and courage. And maybe, just maybe, the future of emotional intelligence in India doesn't lie in looking west, it lies in looking within. The world talks of emotional intelligence as the future, but in India, it may always have been our past. So long, happy learning.